I often sit in the quiet of my living room, the sun casting a warm glow through the window, and I think back to those early years of our marriage. It feels like a different life altogether, one filled with laughter, trust, and a deep-seated belief that we were meant to be together. My wife, Sarah, was the embodiment of joy. Her laughter could light up the darkest days, and her smile was a beacon that drew me in every time. We met in college, two young souls navigating the chaos of academia, and from the moment we met I was captivated by her energy. Our relationship blossomed like a spring flower. We shared dreams and secrets, built a life together brick by brick, and celebrated milestones, our wedding day, the purchase of our first home, and the little moments that made up our everyday lives. I remember the way she would curl up next to me on the couch, her head resting on my shoulder as we watched our favorite shows, completely content in our little bubble. We were a team, partners in everything, and I thought we would always be that way. Sarah had this adventurous spirit that often led us into spontaneous outings. Whether it was a last-minute road trip or trying out a new restaurant, she thrived on the thrill of the unknown, and I admired that about her. We balanced each other perfectly. I was the planner, the steady hand, while she was the spark that ignited our adventures. Even in the mundane moments, grocery shopping, cleaning the house, or sitting quietly together, there was a sense of comfort and security. I was certain that our love was unbreakable. As life progressed, we both settled into our careers. I was working hard as a marketing manager, and Sarah was making strides in her career as an interior designer. She had a keen eye for detail, and I often marveled at how she transformed spaces. Our home became a reflection of her talent, filled with warmth and personality. We talked about our future, children, travel, retirement plans. I was excited about the life we were building together. But in retrospect, I realized that life was not as perfect as I thought. There were subtle shifts, changes in her demeanor that I brushed aside. Late nights at work turned into weekends spent away from home, claiming she was busy with clients or projects. I trusted her implicitly. I believed in her dedication to her career. The thought that anything could be amiss never crossed my mind. I had blind faith in our relationship, convinced that love could conquer all. Looking back, I now see that I was living in a bubble, blissfully unaware of the cracks forming around me. I took for granted the moments we shared, believing that our bond was unshakable. I never imagined that the very foundation of our marriage could be compromised. It wasn't until later, when the storm of betrayal hit, that I would come to understand just how fragile our life together really was. In those days, I felt secure, wrapped in the comfort of our shared dreams. I had no idea that Sarah was gambling with our marriage, unaware that the stakes were far higher than I could have ever imagined. Little did I know that the love I felt was about to be tested in the most painful way possible. It was an ordinary Tuesday evening when everything changed. I had come home from work earlier than usual, eager to surprise Sarah with a homemade dinner. I had spent the afternoon preparing her favorite pasta dish, the smell of garlic and herbs filling the kitchen as I set the table for two. I was feeling good, happy, even. I had just finished plating the food when I noticed her phone buzzing incessantly on the countertop. At first, I thought nothing of it. We all get caught up in our devices, especially with work-related messages. But the constant notifications began to gnaw at me. I hesitated for a moment, then shrugged off my unease. After all, I trusted her completely. But as I stirred the pasta, my curiosity got the better of me. I picked up her phone, intending to silence it. That's when I saw it, a message notification from a contact named Mark. It was a name I didn't recognize, and there were several unread messages. My heart began to race as I felt a knot form in my stomach. I told myself it was nothing, that I was being paranoid, but something inside me urged me to take a look. I unlocked the phone, my hands trembling slightly. As I read through the messages, my world began to crumble. They were flirty, filled with inside jokes and playful banter, things that felt intimate and personal. My breath caught in my throat as I scrolled further, each message revealing a deeper connection than I had ever imagined. I felt as if the ground had shifted beneath me and I was hanging on by a thread. I remember the moment vividly, almost as if it were happening in slow motion. My heart raced, and the room spun around me. The laughter and warmth I had felt just moments before evaporated into a chilling silence. I felt sick. I had stumbled upon something I wasn't supposed to see, and the weight of that knowledge crashed over me like a tidal wave. "Sarah," I called out, my voice trembling. I knew I had to confront her, but a part of me wanted to hide, to pretend I hadn't seen anything. I could hear her footsteps approaching, and I felt a surge of anger mixed with disbelief. This couldn't be happening. Not to us. She walked into the kitchen, her expression lighting up when she saw the dinner. But as she caught sight of my face, her smile faltered. "What's wrong?" she asked, concern creeping into her voice. I held up the phone, my hands shaking. "Who is Mark?" I demanded, my voice a mix of confusion and fury. Her eyes widened, and I saw a flicker of something, fear, guilt, cross her face. She took a step back, and in that moment I knew I had found the crack in our seemingly perfect life, and it was about to shatter everything. "What are you talking about?" she replied, her voice rising defensively. "That's just a colleague from work." "Colleague?" I scoffed, the anger boiling in my chest. "This doesn't sound like a colleague, Sarah. This sounds like something else entirely." I felt a surge of betrayal, a primal instinct to protect what was mine, what we had built together. She opened her mouth to respond, but the words caught in her throat. I could see the denial in her eyes, the desperate attempt to hold on to the facade we had created. But I wasn't interested in her excuses. I wanted answers. I needed to understand how she could betray me like this. As she stumbled over her words, trying to explain away the messages, I felt a deep ache in my chest. It was a visceral pain, one that I had never experienced before. My mind raced, torn between disbelief and a growing anger that threatened to consume me. I had given her everything, my trust, my heart, and in return she had shattered it all in an instant. The argument escalated, emotions flaring as we exchanged hurtful words. I felt like a stranger in my own home, the love we had built now feeling like a distant memory. My heart was heavy with sorrow, but beneath that sorrow lay a simmering rage. I wanted to scream, to lash out, to make her feel the pain she had inflicted on me. As the evening wore on, I felt the walls closing in around me. The dinner I had prepared lay forgotten on the table, a cruel reminder of what we had lost. I could barely process the reality of what was happening. The woman I loved, the woman I had trusted with my life, was standing before me, caught in a web of lies. In that moment, I realized that everything I thought I knew about our marriage was a lie. The trust we had built was crumbling, and the foundation of our life together had been shaken to its core. This was no longer just a betrayal. It was a fracture that would change everything. The tension in the room was palpable, a thick fog of anger and disappointment hanging between us. I felt like I was standing on the edge of a cliff, peering into an abyss that threatened to swallow me whole. Sarah's face was a mixture of defiance and fear, and I could see the wheels turning in her mind, desperately searching for a way to navigate through the wreckage of our conversation. "Please just listen to me," she pleaded, her voice wavering. "It's not what you think. Mark is just a friend from work. We were talking about a project and it got a little casual, but it doesn't mean anything. Doesn't mean anything." I shot back, the incredulity spilling from my lips. "You call that casual? Those messages were filled with flirtation and intimacy, Sarah. How can you stand there and deny it?" I could see the color drain from her face, and for a brief moment I thought I saw genuine remorse flicker in her eyes. But it was quickly replaced by a defensive barrier, and she crossed her arms, as if to fortify herself against the truths I was throwing at her. "You're overreacting. I was just trying to connect with someone at work. It's not a big deal." "A big deal?" I echoed, incredulous. "You're telling me that sharing intimate messages with another man is not a big deal? You've broken my trust, Sarah. You've broken us." I felt the heat of anger rising in my chest, but beneath it lay a profound sadness. I had never wanted to confront her like this, to tear apart the life we had built. But the betrayal felt like a knife in my gut, twisting with every word that left her lips. I wanted to understand, to find some semblance of reason in the chaos, but her denial only fueled my rage. "Why didn't you come to me?" I asked, my voice softer now, almost pleading. "If you were unhappy, if you wanted something different, why didn't you talk to me? We could have worked through it together. But instead, you chose to betray me." Her expression shifted, and I could see the flicker of guilt return. "I didn't want to hurt you. I thought I could handle it. It was just a moment of weakness. I never meant for it to go this far." A moment of weakness. Sarah, this wasn't just a slip-up. This was a conscious choice. You chose to engage with him, to share parts of yourself that should have been reserved for me. You made a decision to betray our vows. I felt the anger bubbling up again, threatening to spill over. I had always believed that love was built on trust and communication, and yet here we were, standing on opposite sides of a chasm that had once been filled with affection and loyalty. The realization that she had chosen to confide in someone else, to seek comfort and connection outside of our marriage, cut deeper than any physical wound. "I'm sorry," she whispered, tears streaming down her face. "I never wanted to hurt you. I never wanted any of this." I wanted to reach out, to comfort her, to tell her that we could fix this. But the betrayal felt too raw, too fresh, and I couldn't shake the feeling that the woman I had loved was slipping away from me. The image of her laughing, carefree and full of life, was now tainted by the realization that she had sought that joy in another man's arms. "Sorry isn't enough, Sarah," I replied, my voice steady but heavy with emotion. "You've shattered my trust, and I don't know if I can ever get it back. I need time to think." As I turned away, the weight of our shattered reality pressed down on me. I could feel her eyes on me, pleading and desperate, but I couldn't look back. I needed to process what had just happened, to grapple with the enormity of her betrayal. The pain was suffocating, and I felt lost in a fog of confusion and heartbreak. The next few days were a blur. I went through the motions of my daily life: work, social obligations, and the mundane tasks that filled my routine. But inside, I was a storm of conflicting emotions. I felt anger towards Sarah, sorrow for the love we had lost, and an overwhelming sense of betrayal that gnawed at my insides. Friends began to notice my change in demeanor, my lack of enthusiasm, and the shadows that crept into my eyes. I brushed off their inquiries, telling them I was simply busy with work. I didn't want to burden anyone with my pain, not yet. I needed to figure this out on my own. But every time I closed my eyes, I saw the messages, the words that had shattered my world. The laughter I had once cherished felt like a distant memory, replaced by an overwhelming sense of loss. I had trusted her with my heart, and now it felt like she had taken that trust and stomped on it. I had always believed that love could withstand anything. But now, as the days turned into sleepless nights, I began to question everything I had once held dear. How could I move forward when the foundation of my life felt so unstable? How could I rebuild trust when it had been so carelessly broken? As I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, I realized that I was at a crossroads. I could either choose to fight for what we had or walk away from the wreckage. But the decision felt impossible, and I was consumed by the uncertainty of what lay ahead. The days that followed the confrontation felt like a blur of confusion and despair. I moved through life as if I were a ghost, haunting my own home. The laughter that once filled our living room was replaced by a heavy silence that seemed to echo through the walls. I could hardly look at Sarah without feeling a surge of anger and sadness. Each glance reminded me of the betrayal, the trust that had been so carelessly thrown away. My routine became a series of mechanical motions. I still went to work, but my mind was elsewhere. I struggled to focus on projects and meetings, my colleagues noticing my distracted demeanor. "Are you okay?" they would ask, concern etched on their faces. I would nod, forcing a smile that never reached my eyes, but inside I felt like I was unraveling. When I came home in the evenings, I would often find Sarah sitting on the couch, her expression a mix of hope and despair. She wanted to talk, to explain, to mend what had been broken, but I wasn't ready for that. I felt raw and exposed, like a wound that had been ripped open. I couldn't bear to hear her voice, to listen to her attempts at justification. The words "I'm sorry" felt empty, a hollow echo of the love we once shared. Instead, I buried myself in work and distractions. I spent late nights at the office, drowning myself in tasks that required my full attention. I found solace in the mundane, in the predictable rhythm of deadlines and meetings. It was easier to focus on something external rather than confront the turmoil brewing within me. But the truth was that I was only delaying the inevitable. The weekends were the hardest. The quiet of our home felt suffocating, and I often found myself going for long drives, seeking solace in the open road. I would turn up the music, trying to drown out my thoughts, but the pain always lingered just beneath the surface. I missed the intimacy we had shared, the late-night talks, the shared dreams, the simple joy of being together. Now, everything felt tainted by her betrayal. I started to isolate myself from friends and family. I didn't want to talk about what had happened. I didn't want to relive the pain. I could sense the worry in their voices when they reached out, but I brushed off their concerns, insisting I was fine. I felt ashamed, too. Admit the truth. How could I explain that the woman I had loved and trusted had destroyed everything we had built? It felt too raw, too painful to share. As the weeks passed, I found myself grappling with a whirlwind of emotions: betrayal, anger, sadness, and confusion. I would lie awake at night, staring at the ceiling, my mind racing with questions. How could she do this? How could she risk everything we had? I wanted to scream, to lash out, but the silence of the night held me captive, leaving me alone with my thoughts. One evening, after yet another day of numbing solitude, I returned home to find Sarah sitting at the dining table, her eyes red and puffy from crying. She looked up as I entered, and for a fleeting moment I saw the woman I had fallen in love with. But that image quickly faded, replaced by the reality of our situation. "Can we please talk?" she asked, her voice trembling. I hesitated, my heart pounding in my chest. I didn't want to hear her excuses, her attempts to explain away her actions. But I could see the desperation in her eyes, the realization that our marriage was hanging by a thread. "Fine," I finally said, my voice low, "but I don't know if I can handle this right now." As we sat across from each other, the weight of unspoken words filled the space between us. She took a deep breath, her hands clasped tightly in front of her. "I know I've hurt you in ways I can't even begin to understand. I'm so sorry for what I did. It was a stupid mistake, and I regret it every single day." I felt a mix of anger and sorrow at her words. A mistake. "You didn't just trip and fall, Sarah. You made a choice. You chose to betray me." "I know," she replied, her voice breaking. "And I can't take it back. I wish I could. I've been so lost, and I let my insecurities get the better of me. I never wanted to hurt you, but I was looking for something I thought I was missing. That was my fault, and I'm so sorry." I listened, my heart aching as she spoke. I could hear the remorse in her voice, but it felt overshadowed by the enormity of her actions. I wanted to believe her, to find a way to forgive her, but the pain still felt fresh. "I don't know if I can trust you again," I admitted, my voice barely above a whisper. "Everything feels broken, and I don't know how to put it back together." "I understand," she said, tears streaming down her cheeks. "But I'm willing to do whatever it takes to earn back your trust. I love you, and I don't want to lose you. I'll go to counseling, I'll do anything. Just please don't give up on us." Her desperation struck a chord within me. I could see how much she was hurting, how deeply she regretted her actions. But the question remained: could I ever truly forgive her? Could we rebuild what had been lost, or were we destined to drift apart? The thought of losing her, of walking away from the life we had built together, filled me with a profound sense of sorrow. But I knew that moving forward wouldn't be easy. Trust, once broken, takes time to heal, and I was still grappling with the raw emotions that threatened to overwhelm me. As I looked into her eyes, I felt the weight of our decision pressing down on us. The road ahead was uncertain, and I knew that whatever path we chose would require courage, vulnerability, and a willingness to confront the demons of our past. For the first time since the discovery, I felt a glimmer of hope. Perhaps, just perhaps, we could find a way to navigate through the darkness together. But it would take time, and I was still unsure if I was ready to take that leap. The days turned into weeks, and as the initial shock of Sarah's betrayal began to settle, I found myself at a crossroads. I was still grappling with the emotional fallout, but I also felt a growing curiosity about the lessons I could learn from this experience. It was a painful journey, but I was slowly beginning to understand that pain could also lead to growth. We started attending couples counseling, a step I had once thought would be unnecessary. I had always believed that communication was key to a healthy relationship, but now I realized that communication required vulnerability, a willingness to peel back the layers of hurt and expose our raw emotions. In those therapy sessions, we were forced to confront not only the betrayal, but also the underlying issues that had driven Sarah to seek solace outside our marriage. I learned that her actions were not just a reflection of her character. They were also rooted in her struggles with self-worth and the pressures she felt in her career. As she opened up about her insecurities, I began to see her in a different light. The woman I had loved was still there, but she was also a person wrestling with her own demons. I found myself feeling compassion for her, even amidst my own suffering. In therapy, we explored the concept of trust, which had been shattered between us. The therapist guided us through exercises designed to rebuild that trust, encouraging open dialogue about our feelings and fears. I realized that my anger, while justified, was a barrier to healing. I needed to let go of some of that anger if I wanted to move forward. It was an uncomfortable realization, but one that I knew was essential. As we dug deeper into the roots of our issues, I reflected on my own role in our relationship. I had been so focused on my career and the demands of life that I had neglected the emotional intimacy we once shared. I had taken for granted the small moments, the laughter, the late-night talks, the shared dreams. I had stopped nurturing our connection, assuming it would always be there. Through this process, I learned that love requires effort, and it's easy to lose sight of that in the hustle and bustle of daily life. I began to understand that I had to be an active participant in our relationship, to invest time and energy into rebuilding what had been lost. It wasn't just about forgiving Sarah. It was also about rekindling the flame that had once burned brightly between us. As the weeks turned into months, I found myself slowly letting go of the bitterness I had clung to. I started to see glimmers of the woman I had fallen in love with, the laughter that once filled our home, the warmth of her touch, the joy in her eyes. It was still fragile, but it was there. We began to create new memories, exploring the city together, trying out new restaurants, and finding joy in the little things. It felt like we were rediscovering each other, like two lost souls finding their way back home. I realized that while the betrayal had changed us, it didn't have to define us. We could choose to rise from the ashes, to build something stronger and more authentic. I also started to engage in self-reflection, recognizing that healing was a two-way street. I had to work on my own insecurities, my own fears of inadequacy. I started journaling, pouring my thoughts and feelings onto the pages, allowing myself to process the emotional turmoil that had consumed me. It was cathartic, a way to untangle the mess of emotions swirling inside me. Through this journey, I discovered the importance of forgiveness, not just for Sarah, but for myself as well. I had to forgive myself for the moments of weakness, for the times I had allowed my insecurities to cloud my judgment. I had to let go of the anger that threatened to consume me, realizing that holding onto it would only hinder my healing. As we continued our counseling sessions, Sarah and I worked on rebuilding our emotional intimacy. We practiced active listening, ensuring that we both felt heard and understood. I learned to express my feelings openly, to communicate my needs and desires without fear of judgment. It was a difficult process, but with each conversation, I felt the walls between us begin to crumble. In time, I began to trust Sarah again, but it was a cautious trust, one that required ongoing effort from both of us. We established boundaries, ensuring that we were both committed to transparency and honesty. I found comfort in the reassurance that we were both invested in our relationship, willing to work through the difficulties together. Looking back, I realized that this experience had transformed me in ways I had never anticipated. The pain of betrayal had forced me to confront my own vulnerabilities, to reflect on the importance of connection and communication. I had learned that love is not just a feeling, it is a choice, a commitment to nurture and support one another through life's challenges. As we continued to navigate the complexities of our relationship, I felt a sense of hope emerging. While the road ahead was still uncertain, I believed that we could emerge stronger together. We had weathered the storm, and now it was time to rebuild, brick by brick, moment by moment. I had come to understand that healing takes time, but I was willing to invest that time into our relationship. I had faith that we could forge a new path, one rooted in trust, understanding, and a deeper appreciation for the love we shared. As I sit here now, reflecting on the journey Sarah and I have taken, I can hardly believe how far we've come. The pain of betrayal still lingers in the back of my mind, but it no longer defines me or our relationship. Instead, it has become a catalyst for growth, a turning point that forced us to reevaluate everything we thought we knew about love, trust, and commitment. Therapy sessions have become a regular part of our lives, a safe space where we can express our feelings without fear of judgment. Sarah and I have learned to communicate openly and honestly, discussing our fears and insecurities while also celebrating our victories, no matter how small. We've developed rituals to reconnect, like weekly date nights and daily check-ins, where we ask each other about our days, our feelings, and our dreams. These moments have become precious, a reminder of the love that still exists between us. I've come to appreciate the fragility of trust. It's not something that can be taken for granted. It must be nurtured and protected. I've learned to be more attentive, to listen not just to Sarah's words but to the emotions behind them. And in turn, she has worked tirelessly to prove to me that she is committed to our marriage and to earning back my trust. Every day, she shows me through her actions that she understands the gravity of what she did and that she is willing to fight for us. The journey hasn't been without its challenges. There are still moments when the shadows of doubt creep in, when I question whether I can fully let go of the past. Sometimes I find myself replaying the painful memories, the hurtful words exchanged in anger. But I remind myself that healing is not linear. It's a process, a series of steps forward and backward, and that's okay. What matters is that we are both committed to moving forward together. I've also focused on my own healing, seeking to understand my emotions and how they impact my relationship. I've read books on forgiveness and emotional intelligence, attended workshops, and even started practicing mindfulness to help manage my anxiety. I've learned that it's okay to feel vulnerable, to acknowledge my pain without allowing it to consume me. I've come to realize that vulnerability can be a strength, a bridge to deeper intimacy. As I reflect on what I've learned, I find that the most significant lesson is the importance of resilience. Love is not just about the good times, it's about how we navigate the storms together. It's about choosing each other every day, even when it's hard. I've learned that we can emerge from the darkness stronger than before, but it requires effort, patience, and an unwavering commitment to one another. Today, our relationship feels different, but in a good way. There's a newfound depth to our connection, a sense of understanding that transcends the superficial. We've become partners in a way I never anticipated, working together to build a love that is more authentic and grounded. It's not the same as it was before. Perhaps it's even better because we've faced our demons and emerged on the other side. As I look to the future, I feel hopeful. I don't know what lies ahead, but I know that we are equipped to handle it. Together, we've weathered the storm, and while the scars of betrayal will always remain, they serve as reminders of our strength, our growth, and our ability to overcome. I've learned that forgiveness is not a destination, it's a journey. And while I may never forget the pain, I am finally ready to embrace the possibilities of tomorrow. I am committed to building a life with Sarah, one filled with love, trust, and a deeper appreciation for the moments we share. In the end, I've come to understand that love is a choice, an active decision to nurture and support one another through life's trials. And as I sit here, I choose her. I choose us. Together, we will forge a new path, one built on resilience, understanding, and an unwavering commitment to each other. With a hopeful heart, I close this chapter, ready to embrace whatever comes next. Thank you for joining me on this journey.